This podcast episode is brought to you by Coors Light. These days, everything is go, go, go. It's nonstop hustle all the time. Work, friends, family expect you to be on 24/7. Well, sometimes you just need to reach for a Coors Light because it's made to chill. Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged. It's as crisp and refreshing as the Colorado Rockies. It is literally made to chill. Coors Light is the one I choose when I need to unwind. So when you want to hit reset, reach for the beer that's made to chill. Get Coors Light in the new look delivered straight to your door with Drizzly or Instacart. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
Welcome back to another episode of Short Shifts, brought to you by Keeping Karlsson. My name is Ben Burnett. Joining me, as always, my pal and yours, Louis Ezekiel. Louis, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
Doing just fine. Happy to still be employed, unlike some of our coaches who were employed yesterday. And, we may see some more going tomorrow. Who knows? The way things are happening, Ottawa just seems to be driving people out the door right now.
I thought you were about to get political on me there, talking about employment, but I'm glad that you stayed away from it. Ottawa is on a tear. They're the coach killers in Ottawa. First, I guess they didn't kill Sheldon Keefe, but they seem to have destroyed the Maple Leafs somewhat for 2 games, and now they're giving Montreal, or then they were giving Montreal fits. Now they're giving Calgary fits, up 5-1 tonight. Of course, we are welcoming you for Short Shifts. This is our twice weekly check-in show between the ginormous Sunday evening episodes of Keeping Karlsson. Tweet at us at ShortShiftsKK if there's a player that we don't talk about that you'd like to hear from. Or you can head to keepingkarlsson.com/patron to chat with Brian, Elon, Louis, myself, and all of the wonderful patrons of Keeping Karlsson. Louis, we have a packed show, so let's get into it. First, we've alluded to it already. Claude Julien out in Montreal. Dominique Ducharme, interim head coach. He was an assistant with Montreal prior to this. All we really know so far, the Habs do have a 2-0 lead in his first game as the head coach. He shuffled the lines a bit. He reunited the Tatar, Danault, Gallagher line that's been kind of a fixture of the Habs for the last year and a half. He reunited Drouin, Suzuki, and Anderson, or I guess that wasn't a reunion. They've been playing together all year. But then he put Corey Perry on the third line with Tyler Toffoli and Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Louis, do you have any takes on this firing already? Is it too soon? Like, to me, I struggle to know really what to say. This is the sort of head coaching change where there's not an immediate like, oh, this guy's stock is just shot right up.
Sure. I think one thing that we might see potentially is the end of this kind of top 9 that's all been very even that they've been running in Montreal. I think it is an opportunity for one of those lines to kind of assert themselves as that dominant top line and start to maybe get some more minutes. We know Julien was, to almost the point of obsession, it seemed like, keeping those lines fairly even in terms of their deployment. So, that might mean, I would imagine that whoever ends up as, that first line is going to see a minute boost, and that'll be helpful, obviously, for their count or their rate stats, and hopefully for some scoring too. Second line will remain more or less unchanged. Third line will see some reduction in time, if I'm just guessing here. But, the thing that we really want to see from Montreal is to see that offense start to improve, it's not offense, it's the defense that's the problem.
Do you think?
Well,
I think it's the power play. That's my main issue with Montreal. I think if they had a competent power play, that would be a team who, they might be able to live up to some of the hype that they were getting in the first 10 games of the year.
Yeah, I wonder if it's the lack of like a true superstar kind of talent up on the top power play. Like, they have lots of players who would fit well onto a top power play and can play nicely. But, look at what Laine has done to the power play in Columbus when they were sort of in a similar situation where they just kind of needed that, one person to blast away. And Gallagher certainly is never unwilling to shoot. But, he hasn't been putting up the kind of numbers that you would hope to see out of that sort of top power play person. So I wonder if that is a problem that they can solve internally, just by shaking things up or moving pieces around.
Yeah, I think the issue with Gallagher is that he he's a shot machine, but he just obviously really struggles to finish. He shoots a ton from up close. He's always towards the top of the expected goals list. Kind of reminds me of Brady Tkachuk, this guy who we've gotten used to seeing, underachieve relative to his expected goals numbers. But to me, I think the main issue with Montreal is just that at even strength, there is no superstar to kind of give those Austin Matthews minutes to, So I actually don't really have a problem with Montreal rolling their top three lines from a hockey perspective. From a fantasy hockey perspective, I just like to see them give, to make somebody into a superstar. Like, I'd love it for Nick Suzuki to be the 20 minutes a night, like 65, 70 point guy. But right now, it doesn't seem like maybe he is going to hit that height that we thought he would earlier this year. I think more interestingly, though, or something that I'm watching as closely is in nets, where Carey Price has been clearly outdueled by Jake Allen so far this year. And at this point, Claude Julien goes, you can't think that Marc Bergevin continues to get a pass. Like, if this season continues to go off the rails, I wonder if there's just a little bit of pressure for Ducharme and for Bergevin to play Jake Allen more. Like, I don't see why you wouldn't.
Yeah, that'll be certainly interesting to keep an eye on. And, we're speculating here, so it's a wait and see situation like it so often is when we see these changes. We've got a little bit of data points here. I think this is the kind of thing that we can revisit when we have a better sense of what's to come.
All right, Lewis, let's move into the injuries and outjuries section of our show. First of all, this one was not something we planned to talk about coming into the evening, but Buffalo announced 5 minutes after rosters locked that Jack Eichel would be out. And then after the first period, Linus Ullmark left the game. Ullmark, we seem to believe it appeared to have been a groin injury, and it's hard to predict without further information how long he'll be out. Eichel, we still don't really know, though. Buffalo said a lower body injury, but definitely an unexpected scratch. In his stead, Riley Sheahan played on the top line. I don't know that there are many fantasy takeaways I could really give about these injuries right now.
No, I think, obviously it means we're probably going to see a few starts in a row from Hutton. And, that is, I would say maybe a dangerous proposition. He's playing fine tonight in his, fill-in role here. But just, I think the way that the Sabres have been playing lately, they've been getting bailed out a little bit on the back end. And I don't know if Hutton is going to be able to do that for them the same way Ullmark did, say, against New Jersey earlier in the week. And certainly if Eichel is going to be out for any extended period of time, I would worry about the degree of run support that you're going to get and how much you're going to be able to control the puck. It has been nice to see the Sabres kind of get their legs under them coming out of that long break that they had and came back just kind of very slowly, but certainly seem to have found their stride and have been playing pretty nicely lately. So this is a bit of sand in the gears for that Buffalo revival.
I'm with you there. Yeah, I'm not overly excited about either of these players going out. I don't think it's a good thing. I'm just going to run through our last couple of injuries here. Jason Zucker out longer term, according to Coach Sullivan for the Penguins. A bummer for Zucker, who really hasn't put it together in his second year or his first full season in Pittsburgh. In his stead, Zach Aston Reese appears to be online too. Hasn't done anything tonight. But, maybe somebody to keep an eye on as he is getting exposure to the, late period of Jenny Malkin, which maybe isn't as exciting as it would have been preseason. And then in Toronto, Zach Hyman is back from an injury. He missed a game, I believe, just the one, and straight to top line in Toronto with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. I traded for Zach Hyman today in the Cupful, and I'm hopeful that he can keep that deployment and be very good.
So I guess the only question with Hyman is, does he maintain that spot when Joe Thornton comes back, who is having so much success in that position? I would imagine that it might remain Hyman, but we'll see how things work out once Joe Thornton makes his return.
Great point. Lewis, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some cold streaks and some hot streaks. You're listening to Short Shifts.
The economy is made up of real people doing real stuff, and it affects everything, which you obviously know since you're a real person doing real stuff. Marketplace is here to help you get smart about everything beyond the what of the day's business and economic news. We dig into the how and the why with the real people driving our economy. From big tech and interest rates to small businesses and what's happening at the Fed, Marketplace breaks it all down so you don't have to. Listen to Marketplace wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back, Lewis. Let's get into the hot streak portion of the show. I am going to start by talking about a goaltender I streamed in the Cupful a few nights ago. He got me a shutout against Detroit. Yes, I'm talking about Pekka Rinne. And tonight he has 2 goals against. Not my favorite news of the evening to report. I was kind of hoping he might be able to shut the door again. 19 of 21 so far. So hopefully he can piece together a strong third period here. But a bit of a bounce back season for Rinne. I remember listening to the Keeping Karlsson Smart Goalies Board episode, and I was annoyed that Brian put Pekka Rinne in like tier 4 or whatever. I was like, no, Saros' net. Rinne is a bottom tier goalie at this point. But I mean, he's kind of proven the haters wrong so far into the year. 5 of the Preds' 8 wins this season. He's got a .916 prior to tonight after posting an .895 last year. Last year, he had a 30% really bad start percentage, which is a stat they keep track of on Frozen Tools. This year, just 1 bad start in 11, or 1 really bad start out of his first 11. 5 quality starts in his last 6. Lewis, Pekka Rinne, did I make a good call streaming him in? Are you interested in him in a league where you need goalie starts?
Yeah, well, I'm someone who just lost Linus Ullmark to injury, so, I think he's gotten through a section of the schedule that I think was especially appealing. So moving forward, I think you want to keep an eye on what some of those matchups look like, because Nashville has not been especially strong offensively over the last couple weeks. So they certainly have problems of their own, but Rinne at least has been providing them some stability in goal that they have not been able to get from Saros. Saros has only been seeing the occasional start here and there since a couple 5 and 6 goal against games where he just really seemed to be struggling to see the puck, the way that we, have seen him at times when he's been dialed in. And of course, he's a smaller goalie, so he doesn't have as much just, big pads and equipment and long limbs to kind of bail him out when he's not playing up to his best. Fewer pucks are just going to bump into him the way we saw, Khudobin stop a puck with his butt the other day. So, I am interested in Rinne. I was the last one to hold him before you picked him up, and he played a couple crucial games for me in a previous match. So I like the idea of streaming him in. What's nice about him is that if the thing, starts to turn around on him and he's not playing as well, it's not too painful for you to stream him back out. But I think he certainly provides some appealing starts right now, especially when he's playing against some of the dregs in that division.
All right, Lewis, tell us our next hot streak here.
All right, so up next is Carl Soderberg, someone who is going to be available in an awful lot of leagues, and I would imagine is only appealing in your deeper leagues, your 12 or 14 or even 16-team leagues for sure. He's playing line 2 with Kurashev and Janmark right now, but he's on that top power play with Kane and DeBrincat. Just 2% rostered on Yahoo. I think he was picked up for I think he's not showing up on Cupful.com because he was only just picked up this morning by one team. He's not shooting much. His 3 goals over the last 5 games are on just 7 shots. But a couple of those have been on the power play and have been made pretty easy by nice work from Patrick Kane. So he's on a nice streak. He's getting great deployment. He's available almost everywhere. So if you are looking to get in on some of that Chicago power play, this is an easy way to do so at very minimal cost. So we've got a player who has just been on fire lately in Ottawa up next. What do you say about our next guy, Ben?
Yeah, well, this is actually, and I'm realizing that this list is full of players that I've either had in Cupful or have just dropped. Drake Batherson, another guy who I dropped, I guess, 3 or 4 games ago. And guess what? Nothing was the same since I dropped Drake in Cupful. He's gone sicko mode. Goals in 4 straight, 7 points in his last 6. He is up to just a 48-point pace on the year over 82 games, and he is on line 3 playing with Stützle and Anisimov. He had been playing with Stepan before the injury, but he is back on power play 1, and the main reason I was comfortable dropping him last weekend, I believe it was because he was playing line 3, he's getting power play 2 minutes. It's tough to want somebody who's not playing at all with Brady Tkachuk in Ottawa. But 48 points on the year, line 3, but he's doing really well. He's on this hot streak and he's getting power play time, and the power play is putting up some points. He isn't shooting at the same level as he was early in the year. He had a couple 5 and 4, and he had a 7-shot game at one point. I think that was game 2. just a 2.3 shot per game pace over the full season at this point. So definitely I'm not as excited about Batherson as I was early in the year, but I think he maintains streamer level appeal in all leagues as long as he's hot. Stream him while you have him, but just don't feel married to him if he goes cold again. Lewis, why don't you tell us about our next hot streak?
So next up is a defenseman in Calgary who is playing a role in one of the subplots of my Cupful Tier 1 matchup with Elon. He dropped Rasmus Anderson, and I picked him up, and a while ago I dropped Tristan Jarry, and he is holding him, so we're going to try and find out which one of us made the better fab spend and pickup in our battle against each other. So after only getting 1 goal in 8 games, he's now got 7 points in the last 10. For a little bit better of a streak here. He's still holding on to that top power play spot. Now, the scoring has not been huge, and even the shooting has really struggled lately in Calgary, so hopefully they can make some changes, but obviously it's appealing to have a player who is on that top power play with all the talent they've got there. He's got a couple 5-shot games in there, too. He'll put up some hits and a block or 2 in there for you. So someone who may not be, people may not have picked up on him just because the production is not so high. But certainly in terms of deployment, it's looking pretty good. And, even though the scoring has been a little bit spotty lately, pretty decent from what you would want to. If you can get 7 out of every 10 from a defenseman, you're going to feel very happy about yourself.
So I actually feel like I need to pour a little bit of cold water here on Rasmus Anderson. I really don't like that he only has 1 power play point since getting back up on that top unit. I don't really buy the even strength production. Calgary is really struggling to score. I don't think that he's going to get in on as many goals as he's been getting in on. I think he's running pretty lucky right now. So count me on the sell high on Anderson train.
Oh, right on. All right. Well, I hope that you're wrong, but I can certainly see where you're coming from. Why don't you tell us about a cold streak in Colorado?
For sure. This is, I'm going to talk about Andre Burakovsky, one of the most dropped players on Yahoo this week. I wish I wasn't saying this because I still have him, so obviously I should have dropped Burakovsky, held on to Batherson. 0 points in his last 5 games, despite playing a couple of those games on the top line and power play with McKinnon and Rantanen. While Gabe Landeskog was out, Gabe Landeskog came back from the COVID list, stayed on line 3, while Burakovsky was on line 1, still getting power play 1 minutes, couldn't put up a point. So, there are a lot of leagues where I am more than happy to stream out Andre Burakovsky. He's probably not long for my Cupful lineup unless he starts to pick it up here. But, no game tonight, so holding him for the off night tomorrow. Landeskog also has been cold since coming back from the COVID list. 0 points in the 4 games since. I'm not worried about Landeskog. I think, obviously we've seen a few players need some time to adjust, but he also spent time on the third line. He's back on that top line now. Gabe Landeskog is going to be fine. Don't freak out. Burakovsky, don't be married to Andre Burakovsky. Lewis, why don't you tell us our final cold streak here?
All right, so for our last one here, we've got another guy with prime deployment, but who just is not producing right now, and that's Jordan Staal in Carolina. I've been singing his praises and enjoying him so much for the past few weeks, but he has no points in the last 4 games, and the game with Tampa Bay is winding up soon, and he has yet to point in that one either. He is creeping up undroppable in shallower leagues. I certainly would drop him if I could pick up a guy like Bjorkstrand, or if Richie is still hanging around for some reason. He's still putting up a few shots here and there, but without that production where he was scoring, at an obviously unsustainable pace on something like 30% of his shots, he is certainly much more droppable. The one thing that is keeping me hanging on right now is he does have access to that lethal top power play. And I think as long as he keeps that spot, I think it is worth holding on to him in a lot of leagues, but use your discretion certainly. And if you've got some up and comers available, you may want to stream him back out and just keep an eye on him and see if he goes on another heater.
Okay, so we talked about Drake Batherson earlier. Would you rather have Batherson right now?
I mean, if we're talking about riding the hot streaks, obviously Batherson has been extremely effective in that regard. How long is Ottawa going to keep up their scoring like this? I don't know, but it's tough because, like I said, I love that top power play. I think a few more scoreless games of Staal, and I might make that swap.
I'm actually more or less out on Jordan Staal as soon as he goes cold like this, it's like, he's not going to point on the top power play enough to make him relevant here. And like the shooting 26% still on the season, like he still has a lot of regression coming to the goal total. You got very lucky with Jordan. Listen, Jordan Staal, I'm obviously bitter towards him because he was the difference in our Battle of the Buds 3 or 4 weeks ago. You got 13 points out of Jordan friggin' Staal on a Sunday. Total fluke. You can stream him out.
Okay, so you think I'm clinging too much to those glory days?
I mean, in the Cupful, that's a deeper league to me, and I could see holding on to him. Presumably, he's probably not the lowest guy on your roster, but yeah, I don't think. I think in most leagues, you can probably start to let go of Jordan Staal.
Yeah, I think my rash of injuries is going to keep him around for a while longer, but it may not be there in a week or two.
All right, Lewis, we have one more storyline I want to talk about tonight. That's Alex Tuch up on the top line in Vegas, playing with Chandler Stevenson, Mark Stone. He's bumped Max Pacioretty down to line 2 with Cody Glass, and Riley Smith was playing there in the last game. I guess I'm mostly just curious about Alex Tuch. He keeps scoring, and he keeps not really shooting that much as well. Do you think Alex Tuch is somebody who can sustain a hot pace? Can he score 65 points in a season? Can he put up that pace if he's getting top line, top power play deployment like we've seen recently?
I don't know about 65. That might be a little rich for me, but maybe somewhere between 55 and 60, as long as he's keeping that deployment like you were talking about. I really like Tuch. I held him for quite a long time. He was kind of my Jordan Staal for a while, where I just couldn't drop him because he kept being productive or because, the line, I guess he was producing last year from worse deployment. So that does make me kind of look at him as a very potentially appealing stream here. I don't know that we're going to see Pacioretty separated from Stone for all that long. So if you are thinking about making this move, I would make it sooner rather than later so that you can reap the benefits and then stream him back out once things sort of return to the status quo in Vegas.
Yeah, I actually really like Alex Tuch as a player, and I think that he can I think he can sustain a really nice points pace if he continues to get nice deployment, which I don't know that he keeps Pacioretty's spot all year, but I do think he can. I think he deserves to be in the top 6. And the only issue is that he's so inconsistent with shots. He'll put up 4 shots one game and 0 the next. And it all washes out to about 2 shots, maybe 2.5 shots a game. And so that's kind of what keeps me from getting, like you said, 65 points is probably a touch high, but it's probably a tuck high, in fact. But, 55 points to me seems very, very realistic. And I think that we're not far away from Alex Tuch being a legitimate fantasy relevant guy and somebody that you are going to want to have on your rosters in a season long. All right, Lewis, that's all we have time for today. I want to thank everyone for listening, for myself, and why don't you sign us off?
All right. Well, thanks everyone so much for joining us for another episode of Short Shifts. Please check us out on the Twitter machine at Short Shifts KK. Brian and Elon can be found at Keeping Karlsson. Please check out and patronize the websites that we use to research our episodes: Yahoo, Frozen Tools, Roto World, Natural Stat Trick, and Cupful.com. Our intro and outro music was created by Pat Roach. And until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short.